Meeting of the board, the Juban Crossing Community Development District. Sandy, would you call the order?
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Here.
Mr. Lobel?
Here.
Mr. Ard?
Here.
Mr. Wascom?
Here.
Mr. Garlinghouse?
Here.
Mr. Talbert?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Item 3 is a resolution of the Juban Crossing Community Development District, the Parish of Livingston, State of Louisiana, providing for an assessment exemption for tract G1B located within the Juban Crossing. Located within the Juban Crossing Community Development District, State of Louisiana, in consideration of the owner of the exempt tract agreeing to develop the exempt tract.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Scott Crawford, members of the council. This is a payment in lieu of assessment. We have sold a tract of property to a developer that's going to build a 250-unit apartment project on the west side of Juban Road, north of Juban Boulevard. And we don't have any assessments from the CDD currently. We don't have any bonds outstanding. We have two districts, as you know, the EDD, which collects sales taxes, and we have issued bonds that we use the sales taxes to amortize those bonds with. And we have the CDD, which is primarily for residential infrastructure. Never intended for multifamily, but we, when the multifamily developer was running title, they discovered that we had a CDD. So they wanted to come up with a fixed assessment in advance so they'd know how to budget for property taxes. So they wouldn't be writing us a blank check. So we agreed to, for 5 years, $100 a door annually, and then an 8% increase every 5 years. And so it's not a complete waiver, it's just a payment in lieu of a future assessment. And I can tell you the assessment would probably be about that amount anyway when we did assess, if we did. And they're paying for all their infrastructure improvements. We're running their utilities up at their property line, and they're taking care of everything else.
Yes. Where was this? The tract of land you're talking?
It's if you're coming from the interstate and you take the second entrance into the shopping center.
Yes, sir.
It's to the right,
Gotcha.
north of Juban Boulevard.
Yes, sir.
So this isn't part of the 40 acres that backs up the tax bond, right? This is separate and apart from that?
Separate and apart, yes, sir.
So the pilot program you're going to do is $100 a door, so it's, do you know how many doors they're talking about?
250.
So we're talking about $25,000 a year?
Yes, sir.
So for the first 5 years, it'll be 25 every year?
25,000 a year, yes, sir.
And then at the end of 5, there's going to be an 8% increase?
Yes, sir.
So the assessment will be there in forever or not?
Until the bonds are retired.
The bond for
The CDD.
now the CDD currently doesn't have any.
That's
so
correct.
So you would only assess if the bonds were issued?
No, we're going to assess from day one.
You're going to assess from day one, even though there are no bonds.
That's correct.
Any further comments? Any comments from the audience? If not,
I'll make a motion.
I need a motion to accept the motion by Mr. Talbert.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Wascom. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. I need a motion to, item 4, the trade. Is there any other business we need to discuss?
No, sir. Not for me.
All right. Anything from the audience? Anything further from the council? We need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Avery, second by Mr. Lobel. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Next, we have the Juban Crossing Economic Development District. Ms. Sandy, could you call the roll?
Mr. Mack?
Here.
Mr. Avery?
Here.
Mr. Lobel?
Here.
Mr. Ard?
Here.
Mr. Wascom?
Here.
Mr. Garlinghouse?
Here.
Mr. Talbot?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
I could read it off again, but if you want to go ahead, if you want to.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Scott Crawford, I represent the developer of Juban Crossing Development. You have before you a budget for 2017. We waited until now to get our sales tax information from the tax collector, the Livingston Parish School Board tax collector of sales taxes. As you know, we were flooded and took about 50 inches of water in all of our stores, incurred over $15 million worth of damage, and we remediated and repaired and reopened those stores within 90 days. Our sales are ahead of what they were this time last year. We're seeing a 20 to 30% increase, some stores more. So we expect to make up the shortfall of sales taxes. But in the interim, we had to make an interest payment March the 15th, and we had to use from the Debt Service Reserve Fund about $40,000, which is about 20% of the Debt Service Reserve Fund. We expect to make that up through subsequent sales surpluses.
How long y'all been paying interest? Is that a full interest payment y'all had to make in this year, or is that still a partial interest payment?
We pay interest semi-annually, every 6 months.
But I mean, wasn't it like front loaded with interest and then the principal's loaded to the back? I'm just trying to figure out, to give y'all time to develop the deal.
Yeah, interest only until the end of 17, and I think principal and interest payments kick in 18.
18, so you're just,
Yes,
you're just making an interest payment right now?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Got anything further, Gary?
So y'all believe, based on revenue, that y'all, by the end of the fiscal year, you'll be able to replace the money in the...
By the end of this fiscal, well, by September, which is when the next interest payment's due, we'll have plenty of money to make the interest payment. We won't have to take anything outside of the DSRF. And we will replenish the DSRF either through refinancing our vertical loan, proceeds from that, or insurance proceeds. Our insurance company just like treating us like, we're being treated just like everybody else being treated. So we're having to go to court. We had to file suit. So once we get those insurance proceeds, we think we should have enough to be able to
restore the debt service fund back to its...
Yes, sir. Or we'll do a vertical refunding on the commercial loans on the west side, and we'll take money to replenish it there. But with that, the developer is responsible for that shortfall. That's why that mortgage is on the east side.
On that 40 acres. So
that the bondholders, if we do not replenish that, will assess on the east side, and they'll put a mortgage on the east side, which will be an obligation of the developer. One way or the other, we've got to pay it.
Okay. That's a motion.
A motion, Mr. Talbert. Second by Mr. Ard. Any comments from the audience?
What's the motion for?
Motion for a resolution of the Juban Crossing Economic Development to adopt the amended operating budget of revenues and expenditures for the calendar year 2017.
Thank you.
Is there any future businesses you project coming in that area, Scott?
We are about 75% leased at the current time on the west side. We think we're going to be finished leasing by the end of this year. We're working leases on everything except for the Kohl's store. As you know, Kohl's decided to pull out, but we've got two national credit tenants right now, one of which will take, or both will take the highest price we can get there. We'll fill the thing. We'll fill the whole west side up of everything that's built by the end of this year.
That's fantastic.
And the movie tavern is not open. None of our sales revenues reflect that. They should open pretty soon.
Yeah, we can't wait for that to come.
We
waited years and years for a movie theater, and then
they had to get their theater seats from China.
Right.
So that took a delay.
The slow boat.
Scott, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, did you?
Yep. Call for vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Any further business? All right, need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Ard. Second by Scooter.
Yep.
Mr. King. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?